Whether open or closed, American and European classic cars rank among the most desirable vehicles in the collector car world because they embody universally desirable characteristics such as outstanding craftsmanship, exclusivity, boldly attractive styling, extreme rarity, and excellent performance for the era. Built between the mid-1910s through 1948, classic cars embody the grace, presence, and distinction not normally available at new car dealerships today.
This is a 1942 Chrysler Royal Business Coupe. Business coupes were prevalent during the 30s and 40s and were used by traveling salesmen. As a result, they had no back seat but a huge trunk so that the salesman could carry samples. This car was built in early December 1941, just days before Pearl Harbor, which turned out to be only weeks before chrome started being diverted to the war effort, and then eventually, a few weeks after that, all civilian production ceased. This car is very highly optioned for a business coupe, with the fender skirts, white walls, the white trim rings, a radio, clock, heater, and leather interior. I don't think the car was ever used for its intended purpose, given it's so highly optioned. I think rather the original owner just liked the style, and that's why it has so many options. Let's take a look at the interior. The interior of pre-war Chryslers was very ornate. They had marbleized plastics on the dash. They had faux wood graining on the dash as well. As mentioned, this car has leather. Lots of Art Deco features about the interior. And there's a small space behind the front seat for storage. Let's start the car. The 250 cubic inch straight six developed about 115 horsepower. That is a very rare Mopar battery maintainer. The engine is coupled to a 4-speed transmission running through fluid drive.
I'm Leslie Kendall. I'm the chief historian of the Petersen Automotive Museum. We're presenting a 1933 Duesenberg with a Murphy roadster body. It has a disappearing top, doors that open in suicide fashion, and of course, like any other Model J Duesenberg, a 420 cubic inch straight 8 engine with lots and lots of aluminum in it. Double overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, generates an astounding 265 horsepower when it was new. Supercharged, it could generate up to 320 horsepower, and when it had the manifolding that our car does, it was an extraordinary 400. A Duesenberg was passed only when it wished to be passed, was what they used to say about the car. Every one of them was bespoke. Every one of them was built to order. Murphy of Pasadena not only built this car, but another 50 or so Duesenbergs. They were the most prolific coach builder on the Duesenberg Model J chassis.
Hello everyone, I'm the director of Chengdu Sanhe Classic Car Museum from Chengdu, China. What I present here is one of the most beautiful Packards in history. This 1933 Packard Super 8 dual-core Petersen, model 1004. This car is equipped with many extras, including the 2 palletry lights and the high compression heads and dual windshields mounted spotlights and fitted luggage in the trunk. The color of this car is from inside and outside the same, polar beige, very special color. This car is mounted with an aspirated 8-cylinder engine with a capacity of 6.3 liters and an output of 145 horsepower. This car is one of the 8 made in 1933. Only 3 are known to exist right now. This car was completely restored in 1993 to its magnificent condition and won its prize in 2009 in Pebble Beach. Since 2013, this car has become part of the biggest collection in Chengdu Sanhe Classic Car Museum. Its previous owner is the Black Hawk Museum from California.
Hi, my name is Kevin Callahan. We're here in Ocean City, New Jersey, and I'm just not the proud new owner of a Devon, but the proud new owner of Devon Sports Car, LLC. I recently purchased that from 4 people in California. Today, I'm sitting here in a classic Devon 295 body, and it sits on a TR3 Triumph 1956 frame. We have the 1,991 cubic inch 4-cylinder overhead valve. The way this motor is configured right now, we're pushing way over 100 horsepower, and it sits on the original Triumph TR3 suspension and components.
I'm Leslie Kendall. I'm the Chief Historian of the Petersen Automotive Museum, and I'd like to introduce you to our 1931 Pierce Arrow. Pierce Arrow is a straight 8. It was one of the 3 Ps, Packard, Peerless, and Pierce Arrow of luxury American motoring in its day. Probably the most interesting feature on the outside of the cars is the headlights and how they're mounted. One of the first vehicles to have them on the fenders themselves instead of separate stalks adjacent to the radiator for a bit of an updated look. Pierce Arrow was out of Buffalo, New York. They made very high-end cars through 1938 when they died with so many others in the worst of the Depression.
This is a 1936 Chrysler C9 Airflow coupe owned by Mark and Hillary Becker of Jacksonville, Florida. 94 were built, only 5 are known to survive. The Airflow was the first car designed in the wind tunnel, and its looks were so far advanced for the era that the public had trouble warming up to it, and it was not a commercial success. However, the Airflow brought many engineering firsts to the table, to include the first step towards unit body construction and repackaging of the interior to move the rear seat passengers in front of, as opposed to over the rear axle, which resulted in a smoother ride. It also allowed for 3 across front seating, which was a first. Many of the engineering and design practices of the Airflow were adopted by Chrysler on later models and by the rest of the industry. The interior is full of Art Deco features, to include knobs, escutcheons, the wood graining on certain components of the dash, and the bright work. The 323 cubic inch straight 8 developed 130 horsepower and was mated to a 3-speed manual transmission with overdrive. The engine is remarkably quiet and smooth. In overdrive, the cars will comfortably cruise at highway speeds. A car way ahead of its time and not appreciated in its time.
Hi, I'm Leslie Kendall. I'm the Chief Historian of the Petersen Automotive Museum. One of the cars we're presenting is this 1931 Cord L29 convertible sedan. E.L. Cord had the same idea that General Motors had for making an automotive empire with low price, medium price, and high price cars. Low end was Auburn, high end was Duesenberg, and in the middle was the Cord. All Cords were front-wheel drive, including the L29. Used a straight 8 engine with a transmission in front that drove the front wheels directly. It was interesting to hustle the car around corners because the driving characteristics were very different from rear-wheel drive. Not what we'd expect today, but a very, very brave try in the face of tradition.
Hi, I'm Mark Hyman, and I'd like to tell you about my 1938 Peugeot Darmont Special Sport Roadster. There were 53 of these built in 1938 by Emil Darmont, who was the largest Peugeot dealer in Europe at the time. Coachwork is by Pinin, and it's an extraordinary car. Every part of it is movement and it's jewelry. It's adorned with exquisite trim everywhere, powered by a 2-liter 4-cylinder. And one of the fabulous things about it is this crank-up windshield. And it doesn't run. But seriously, it's one of the most beautiful French cars built in the late 30s, and it's a blast to drive.
It was originally delivered in Milano to a toothpaste magnet. It made its way across the ocean by 1959 and was in New York. We lost track of it until the mid-70s when it was purchased by an individual in 47 individual boxes plus the chassis and motor. That individual planned on restoring the car, but he never quite got to it. 20 years later, he sold it to another individual in the United States who was also planning to restore it himself. 20 years later, in 2017, excuse me, it was still in those same boxes, and he sold it to an Eastern European restorer. That restorer restored the car, and I bought the car in 2018 and brought it back to the United States. This is my 4th Alfa-Romeo, and as you can see here, the triple carburetors, which are the insignia of the Super Sport, shows off quite well. I've turned the turn signals on, and you can see the trafficators operating. When you look inside, as we did a minute ago, you can see the Art Deco knobs and styling, and everything is pretty much original in this car. It is matching numbers, and since buying the car, I have acquired original books and original tools. This is my 4th Alfa, as I said, and currently it's my favorite Alfa.
Yeah, it needs a little help. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So this is the car. It has my name on it. And then this is for you. After you put your name on here.
Cool.
I mean, it's, I put it in the. So this is what they had at the at your show. And then and I think this is the car. I mean, that was I saw one guy who had a 540, and he a guy from Texas.
The main part is going out.
spiders. They're little ones, though. Supercharger wide. The long slumber is over. Definitely a little rich. Yeah, you may want to put the choke in a bit. A separate gas tank for the supercharger.
It's always there.
Yeah, but that's how the supercharger runs. Is the gas goes in there.
Floor, when you do that, so you need that, or else it won't run.
So this mainly goes to the engine.
No, this mainly goes to this.
Oh, okay.
To the supercharger.
And
That's all. The only place it goes.
Feel this, Carl. Put your hand on that.
Definitely likes its fuel.
My name is Dave Spiegel. I live here in San Marino, and this is a 1936 MGSA saloon car. It's a completely CCCA eligible car, European pre-war closed class. There were about 2,000 of these produced, about 200 survive. Most people think that MG made only little two-seater sports cars, but just prior to the war, they made a run of these very luxurious SVW cars to compete with the handsome Jaguar SS cars. They made three body styles. This happens to be the saloon car, factory-bodied saloon car. They made a Tour on this chassis, which was a convertible, and they also made a Tickford, which was a handsome drop-head three-position coupe with the beautiful cram irons here on the side. The interior is lush and beautiful. There's wood inlays, very pretty, brass instruments, and the engine itself is a 2.3 liter inline six-cylinder engine. We use the car as a driver, and as a safety measure put the louder horn under there, so the red horn is simply for safety.
my first experience with an MG is I was born in 1953, and my father, as a gift for having me, bought my mother a brand new MG TD. And so the first thing she did was make a bassinet for me behind the seat in the little boot. And I rode back there until I was 7 years old. And then, of course, when I got my driver's license, my mom said, "What kind of car do you want?" And I said, I wanted one of these, an MGTD, a little bit, the earlier version. So I drove that, and then I had to sell it, get a car so I could go off to college. And then I had another MGTD. I had an MGB that I drove for almost 15 years. Never had any problems with it, ever. So then years passed, and I wanted another MG. So I was decided to get an MGTF because they're rarer. And I found this one down on eBay, down in San Luis Obispo. And I called immediately. It was 6 o'clock at night. So I drove, when I was living at Los Gatos at the time, I drove down the next morning to see it. Then I started bidding on it with the agent who was representing. And it turns out that it was between somebody in New York, a guy in Denmark, and me, and I won by $25. So then I had it shipped up, and then the woman that I bought it from was the original owner, and I have the original receipt. And it was Doris and Dolores, and now I can't remember their last name, and they bought it for $1,702, brand new at the Beverly Hills British Motors. And it was really Doris's car, and I have pictures of this car all over the world because she worked for the State Department. We think she was CIA. And she was in her 80s at the time that I bought the car from her. And she had all kinds of information on the car. She had pictures of her in Algeria with the car with her sister, which I still have. And so we're the second owners, and we basically completely redid the car. So the only thing that we really haven't done is the paint, because she had this really amazing paint job done on it. And we've had a couple, when we get a nick in it, we, have the section repainted or whatever. So yeah, so this is it. So we've had it about 10 years now. So.
Hello, I'm Tom Gilmore, and this is my Lancia Flaminia Sport.
My car, for the last 33 years, a 1961 Lancia Flaminia Sport with bodywork by Zagato. The license plate, Turrifi, a homage to the great Italian driver of the 50s, Piero Turrifi, winner of the Carrera Panamericana, Targa Florio, and the last running of the Mille Miglia.
Antonio Burnett here, and this is our 1942 Alfa-Romeo 6C 2500 SS Spider. Chassis 915-515 in Carroceria Alfa coachwork, arguably one of the most beautiful iterations of the 2500 model. Born in 1942, during World War II, when vehicles that left the Alfa factory were historically associated with the war effort, it left the factory Autotelaio to its carrocero in December of that year. Recorded in Almanac by John de Boer of the Italian Car Registry, it was imported in the 1950s to France by its earliest documented custodian, Corrado Cupolini of Monaco, who commissioned the earlier style Carroceria Alfa bodywork to be married to the World War II era chassis. In the 1980s, it was then sold on to New York collector Homer Taskis, who entered it into 1987 Mille Miglia. It then sold to Lawrence Fryoff, who commissioned its restoration in 1994 by Knut Coleman, with paint by Brian Hoyt and interior by Ken Nemenek. It was then fitted with the period-correct triple Weber SS 2500 engine with a throaty melody that pushes 120 horsepower. Owned before our collection by Tony Shoshani of California, its 23-year-old restoration still presents magnificently. Previously decorated with second in class at the 1997 Pebble Beach Concours, best of show at the 1998 Concorso Italiano, and most elegant car at the 2018 Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance.
Hello, my name is Nick Lemieux, and I'm the proud owner of this 1939 Bentley 4 1/4 liter Van Voren pillarless saloon. This car was a late MX series overdrive car, of which there's only 200 that were ever produced. The overdrive cars differed from the standard cars in that they had Marl's cam and roller steering, 17-inch wheels, higher gearbox ratio, higher rear end axle ratio, improved camshaft, a bypass filter, and actually a thermostat with dummy shutters for the first time, which then became the norm after World War II. What's interesting about them being an overdrive car is that they were guaranteed by the factory to run at speeds of 80 miles per hour with no unnecessary wear and tear, whereas the previous cars were only stated to be good for 70 miles an hour. The car's unique coachwork is by Van Voren, who bodied just 7 of the overdrive cars, and this is a one-off design that is known to be the only one that has survived. It was also the last Bentley bodied car by Van Voren. And an interesting kind of tidbit is actually this car was in the workshop at Van Voren when the Petersen Museum's Shaw Bugatti Van Voren was in there at the same time. Some of the unique features that I really like are these real pointy curved fenders, which give it a really nice look, and it has these kind of outrageous compound curves that make it really stylish. The whole body is a aluminum body, which you can see here they left part of the aluminum exposed and polished it, where the rest of the car is painted. The original owner of the car was Lily Bollinger of the Bollinger Champagne House. She acquired this car right before the Nazis took over her winery, and at night she slept in the cellars next to the Bentley, which she actually had bricked up in order to conceal it from the Nazi invasion. And it survived a second close call as the retreating German army threatened to dynamite the cellars, but General Patton's Third Army arrived just in time to stop the Germans from destroying the cellars along with the Bentley. So it has kind of an interesting history. She kept the car for a number of years, and then after the war, it eventually was sold to the British Council at Biarritz, and then after that eventually passed to the former Pebble Beach Concours chairman, Jules Heumann. So I've had the car since 2014 and have actually put 3,000 miles on it, and I enjoy driving it quite often. And I was lucky in 2019 to be able to have it selected to be shown at the Pebble Beach Concours for the 100 Years of Bentley, which was a huge, huge honor for me and quite an amazing experience. Well, anyways, hope you enjoyed the car, and give you a quick little look at the interior. Interesting part about the interior is normally this would have wood, polished wood and book matched and everything, and it actually has the wood, but it's been covered with leather, which is kind of a trademark French car thing, and especially a trademark Van Voren thing that they did. It also has unique seats, which are kind of almost what you would have seen in a Bugatti of the era. And here you can actually also see the pillarless aspect to the car. Anyways, thank you for checking out my Bentley.
First Republic Bank presents First Things First. At First Republic Bank, first refers to our first priority, the clients who walk through our doors. The first step? Recognize that every client is an individual with unique needs. First decree, be a bank whose currency is service in the form of personal banking. This was First Republic's mission from our very first day. It's still the first thing on our minds.
Vehicles in the post-war preservation category retain the large majority of their original finishes, fabrics, soft trim, and mechanical components. Original materials and finishes reveal a great deal about the era and circumstances surrounding the manufacture of a vehicle, and serve as examples for professionals who can use them for a reference when restoring similar vehicles that were less well cared for. They also offer the most authentic motoring experience possible because they haven't been altered.
Hi, I'm Rich Plavitich, and this is my 1950 Simca 8 Sport Cabriolet. The 8 Sport was designed by Stabiliamenti Farina, originally as a Fiat appearing at the 1948 Turin Auto Show. Simca executives saw the car at the show and wanted an upmarket sports model to enhance the Simca range, which shared the basic underpinnings with the Fiats. Facile Montalon, later of Fossil Vega fame, built the bodies from aluminum with steel doors and hoods. About 3,000 coupes and cabrios were built over 3 years. After rebuilding the mechanicals, the car has been back on the road for 8 years and now shows 40,000 original kilometers. Aside from the 1953 repaint, the car is completely original with factory interior, top, tools, and books. This particular car was originally owned by motoring journalist John Bentley. He entered the car in the very first race at Sebring, the Sam Collier Memorial Grand Prix of Endurance, held on December 31st, 1950, finishing 21st overall. By 1953, the Simca was in Canton, Ohio when it went through a color change from black to the current white. The car was last registered for the road in 1966 until I found it at an estate sale in 2012, still in Canton. Power came from a 50 horsepower, 1221cc inline 4-cylinder with 4-speed gearbox.
Hello, my name is Robert Vallis from Glendale, California, and this is my 1951 unrestored, all-original, true survivor 11A Volkswagen Beetle. This rare example of an original, unrestored, unmolested, all numbers matching 1951 Volkswagen Survivor was one of the first Volkswagens imported officially by Volkswagen to the United States by the influential New York importer Max Hoffman. Max Hoffman was the sole authorized importer to the USA of these economical people's cars from 1950 to 1953. Mr. Hoffman would only sell less than 1,800 units of these lower-priced imports during those years, as he was focusing on his higher-priced Porsche and Mercedes sales, resulting in VW not renewing his contract to import in 1954. Volkswagen Germany would later, in April 1955, establish Volkswagen of America along with the dealer networks we know now today.
Well, my name is Ray Schubert, and this is a 1953 IFA F9 limousine, an East German-built car with a 3-cylinder 2-stroke. This car was found in a barn in Atascadero where it was parked for about 30 years, and with the exception of replacing the carburetor, it fired right up. So we had to go through the brakes, and other than that, it's just a survivor.
Post-war sports cars were built following the armistice in 1945, and they're distinguished from other types of vehicles because they were intended to be driven instead of ridden in. The purest sports cars are normally not intended for everyday transportation obligations, but instead they offer an invigorating driving experience because of their comparative lowness, nimble size, responsive handling, top speed, and rapid acceleration.
I'm Bruce Canepa. How are you today? This is a 1967 Shelby Cobra 427, and actually the last Cobra ever built. So the Shelby Cobra to me is America's coolest sports car. You know, one of its first sports cars, really. You know, it's kind of been the bad boy forever, especially the 427 street car. I actually was fortunate enough to buy one of these when I was 19 years old. I couldn't afford it, so I made lots of payments. I drove it for 20 years and then didn't have one for a long time, and was lucky enough to find this car, and this car was really in pretty original condition but in need of restoration, and we restored this car. I'm thinking like 7 years ago now, and I don't think anybody gets tired of looking at a Cobra. So what's really cool about this car is it was an all original car. It has its original engine. The seats are all original still. They've never been restored. Basically all of its nuts and bolts from one end to the other original to the car. I was lucky enough to meet the original owner. He actually came out and visited us from New Hampshire. He had a great story about buying this car, and then he had to go in the military, and just before he did that, he tried to go out and see how fast it would go, and 140, 150 miles an hour, he ripped off the convertible top. Then he blew up the engine and sold the car later, and hadn't seen it till we got the car and restored it.
I'm Bob Ingram of the Ingram Collection, and we're privileged to be the owners and caretakers of this 1961 Porsche Carrera Abarth GTL. This is number 8 out of 20 Carrera Abarth GTLs built in the 1960-61 period. The body is all aluminum. The frame is obviously a 356B frame, and this has the famous Ernst Fuhrmann 4-cam engine. The original owner of this car, C.J. Hemmerlin in Sweden, won the Swedish GT Championship with this car in 1961. winning all 11 races that he entered. And after winning all 11 races and constantly being protested because he won easily, he put the car away. And as a result, this is probably the most unmolested of the 20 Abarths built. And we're proud of the fact that thanks to the tremendous restoration that the Rhodes Scholars team did, this car won best in class in post-war closed this past year at Pebble Beach.
Hello everyone, I'm Cam Ingram, the owner of Rhodes Scholars. I'm getting ready to start my family's Carrera Abarth GTL. We apologize for the indoor video, but it's been a rainy week here in North Carolina, so let's go ahead and get in and start it up.
Hi, Lance Stander, and here's another one of the really special cars. And I know I say each time it's a special car, but this is a very special car. Carroll in 1964, when he was already cleaning Ferrari's clocks with the Daytonas, he wanted to put the final nail in the coffin, and he developed what was called the secret weapon, or the Super Coupe. And the idea was to take the regular 90-inch Daytona that you see here, that actually ended up winning the World Series, the World Championship in 1965. He took the Daytona and he stretched the chassis 3 inches, and you'll actually see the lines on the hood where the extra aluminum was added to stretch it. And this was his secret weapon. And Bob Bonaron spoke about this car when he tested it in Riverside and said the car was incredibly fast because now he had a 427 FE in the car. So he had a big block in the car. And that just gave him another 100 pound-foot of torque and another 100 horsepower minimum from the 289. The car was incredibly fast, but unfortunately the car was damaged in a transporter in Europe on its way to the race and never got to race. It came back to the US and it was actually then converted back to a 289 car. The body was shortened, the hood was shortened, the frame was shortened, the 289 was put, and that's the car that my personal hero Rob Walton from Walmart owns, and that's the original Daytona. He still owns that car and has raced it, you know, many years. So I've seen him at Willow Springs and up in Monterey at Laguna Seca. So anyhow, this was to be, and Carroll authorized us to build 6 cars because the plan was 6 cars to commemorate that famous Daytona. And this is it. It's the secret weapon, as it's known. And I'll open up here, and you could take a look at what the big, monstrous, big block FE looks like in the car. And this particular one was set up with the Webers. I'm not sure if they were going to do that back in the 60s. It would probably have run 2 4-barrels, but I'm not sure about that. And it's just a remarkable Daytona, extremely fast. And if these cars had happened, you know, with Ford sponsoring Carroll and bringing the GT40 onto the program, these cars were unfortunately were not completed and they didn't get to race. But this car would have really cleaned up at Le Mans and other racetracks around Europe. You know, would have been at least 10, 15 miles per hour faster than the 289 version, if not more. Hope you enjoyed that short description, and Doug's going to open up for us at the back. My cameraman, trusty Doug Campbell, and you probably know him, coupe owner, GT40 owner, and well, he was a coupe owner. His wife owns the Daytona now, and you might have seen the car. It's pretty famous. Chip Poose did a remodel on the car for Marissa. The car turned out incredible. We love Chip. He's just the most amazing guy. Peter Brock visited when Chip was doing it and was very impressed with all that was done. But Peter Brock also loves these. This was all part of him. And we can thank Mr. Brock for our Shelby Daytonas that we love so much. Thanks. Bye.
I'm Jeff Lane, director of Lane Motor Museum, and this is a 1954 Devon Panhard.
And so this was one of the very first cars that Bill Devin built. Bill Devin was a guy from California. He was actually a Plymouth dealer. He raced Ferraris, and then he was one of the very early people that built fiberglass bodies. And he saw a Packard Dyna, and he liked the drivetrain. He liked the front engine, the front wheel drive, the 2-cylinder boxer motor. And he decided to do an aerodynamic body and use the motor. So the body's very, as you can see, was super aerodynamic and slippery. This is a 750cc car, so it was built as a race car. It raced in 1955 and 1956 and got on the podium several times. But not only did he do a very aerodynamic body, but he also did an overhead camshaft conversion for the engine, which made it, typically the Packard 750 was about 35 horsepower, and when he did the overhead cam and other modifications, the horsepower increased to somewhere between 70 and 80 horsepower. So it made the car very fast, very aerodynamic, and of course, as you can see, very basic. Although it had headlights, it has one door on this side, but it does not have a door on that side. So for structural integrity, he just had the one door on this side. The whole front of the car tips up like this, so you can expose to the engine. Again, it's front wheel drive, and it's so very light, very aerodynamic, good power to weight ratio.
We're Pam and Joel Justin, and this is our 1954 Triumph TR2. We've owned this car for almost 6 years and bought it from the person who restored it. He and his father rescued the car from a salvage yard in Sacramento and did a complete frame-off restoration. This is an early long door, number 1084 of 8,638 built. Long door refers to the doors going all the way to the bottom of the body, where later cars had shorter doors with a lower sill. It was built on April 1st, 1954, and delivered from the UK to Florida. As you can see, it is painted in a beautiful glossy black with gray interior, wide white wall tires, and chrome wire wheels. It has a rare Modellita 4-spoke steering wheel with matching shift knob and a factory ashtray. The car has a few subtle modifications. The most obvious is the replacement of the original front drum brakes with TR3A discs. The 2-liter engine has its original low port head and SU-H4 carburetors. The valve cover is a rare period aftermarket aluminum one with a beautiful brass Triumph plate on top. One memory of this car that really stands out to us is when our daughter was engaged looking for her wedding venue. Her #1 criteria was to find a place where her dad could drive her to the head of the aisle in the TR2, get her out and walk her down the aisle to give her away. She found the perfect place, and we must admit it was quite the entrance. We'll go ahead and start the car now.
I'm Lance Stander, and this is my Shelby Cobra 427 SC, and it's actually one of the 50th anniversary cars. So it's a pretty special car, 50 years of the 427 Cobra. Car was originally done by a company called Super Performance, built for Shelby, and naturally really proud of this car. So in the heart of the car, you'll see the 427, and this one has an original iron block, iron head 427 with a single 4-barrel carburetor, everything done the same. Shelby CSX number, CSX Cobra number in the bottom, and everything period correct as they were back in 1965. So we only did 50 of these, and they're pretty special to own. They were all sold out in 48 hours, and I've decided to keep this one and enjoy it. Oh, let me start it up. I nearly forgot. 1 second. that's the heart of the beast. Shelby Cobra 427 50th anniversary.
My name is Bob Baker. This is my 1955 300 SL Mercedes-Benz Gullwing. It's one of 1,400 that were built between 1954 and 1957. I've had it about 15 years and restored the entire car, redone the engine, the transmission, taken the body down to bare metal, re-chromed everything, redid the seats, redid the headliner, and we took it on the Copper State 1000 in 2010, and it was totally sandblasted. The windshield you could hardly see out of, the front bumper looked like brushed stainless steel, and at that time we decided we'd redo the whole car. We got the build sheet from Mercedes-Benz, and we put it exactly as it came from the factory. From the factory it had factory rudge wheels, it has the factory luggage, and the blue plaid seats, 55, and it's pretty much stock with the one exception. The bumper overriders in the front we took off, and we took off the overriders in the back as well. And it handles well. It's a very dependable car. People who own these and use them find them to be very dependable. This one has gone on 2 Colorado Grands. It's gone on the California Mille. It's been driven. It's a comfortable car to ride in for a long period of time, although it has, of course, no air conditioning, no power steering. It has no radio, and so you have to be entertained by the song of the engine and hopefully the person sitting next to you. It's a great car, and one I intend to keep in the family and give to my youngest son, who is a caraholic. My wife and I have 3 sons. Only one is a real caraholic, and he will get this.
And this is something really special. This is my GT40 50th anniversary 1968-69 Le Mans winning toolroom copy. This car is done exactly like P1075. This car is numbered P101175 and actually belongs to a friend of mine, but he allowed me to do this and have the car available for the Petersen. So really excited about showing you this. It's everything that you can imagine from that car, probably the most famous GT40 ever, probably the most famous race car ever, and definitely the most famous Ford ever. Winning Le Mans 2 years in a row against the best the Europeans had, the GT40, 68 and 69, and of course the other GT40s won in 66 and 67. So it's pretty special that this car came back without full factory backing, only portional factory backing, and it still won against the best factory teams in Europe, 68, 69. So everything, you'll start in the front here, and you'll notice little things like the lights in the front, which were identification lights for when they came into the pit area, they could see them. The bug screen on the front, which this car had. This car actually has the Mirage firewall, front firewall in it. It's got the special radiator that they had at the time with the oil cooler up front. That's all in here. You move to the side and you then look at these wheels. Oh, let's get it the right way around. The wheels, and those are 10-inch wide GT40 BRM style wheel in the front, and of course 14-inch wide in the rear. And then Doug can just show you, even the front tire looks meaty and the rear tire meaty as hell. Of course, it had a 302 based engine those days, raced in 68, 69. This has it with the Webers. It's got all that. Straight through exhaust system, which you'll hear in a little while when we start it up. This identification light on the side here actually came from a World War II aircraft, and they were the most reliable that they could use. When you look inside the car, you see all the small details that we did. And we've got Ashton here helping us out. But you can notice the seats, and he can show you how the seats were done. E-brake. The under the dash handbrake, the two temperature gauges. I mean, just everything that was in the car when Jackie X raced the car, right down to the fuel that actually ran under the driver's seat. Now, we blocked that off, but we've got the piping there just to be as accurate as what they were. Ashton can start it up, put it in neutral and start it up there. And of course you can hear it's alive. And there's nothing cooler than the look of this incredible engine. Right down to the fuel pumps on the side, everything the same as the car was when it raced back in 1968 and 69. Even the 1175 tag. Experimental use of carbon fiber panels. They were used for strength at the time, not for lightness as we do currently, but all these little square panels are inserts of carbon fiber that they started experimenting back in the 60s already at a strength. The extra oil coolers, the ZF transaxle, all paired correct, and you gotta love those tires. So this is the 1969 toolroom copy of the Le Mans winning GT40, and it's brought to you by Superformance, licensed with the genuine P-Series number on it.
All right, my name is Jeff Harriman. I've got a rare 1980 Puma convertible, and it's really fun to drive. The car is built in Brazil, and there's about 2,000 of them were imported to the United States between 1965 and 1990. A lot of fun. It's built on international Volkswagen frame, been changed over to all domestic Volkswagen parts with a little bit bigger engine. We can now drive in LA on the freeway and stay alive. This is the first one I've really gotten into to rebuild. I've always wanted to do it and never had the time, and this car came up, and so I jumped on it. It's taken me about 7, 8 years to get it where it is now. Most people think of Pumas as shoes, but it was built by a guy named Rino Malzani. He was a race car driver in Brazil, and this is his design. There's a wood finish. It has heated seats, thanks to Mom. Leather seats that have the Puma backrests, built-in GPS system, new radio, things like that that weren't easy to get back then. It's been upgraded so that we can travel around. The idea was to be a GT, which is Grand Touring, not a race car. That just means you're going out kind of styling around and have picnics and enough room for luggage. A few interesting facts. The cars were brought in with the engines in a crate next to them to get around some import rules. And so when the car got to the dealership, they would put the engines into the cars and then sell them as a whole automobile. There's only about 2,000 of them in the United States and Canada during that time frame. And so there's only a handful left that I even found out about. If you like rare cars, this is one for you. If you like to drive rare cars, you can do that too. A lot of people just collect them and don't drive them. So it goes both directions as far as I'm concerned.
I'm David Sidoric. This is my Aston Martin Zagato, one of 19, made in 1961. They made 8 left-hand drive cars. The rest were right-hand drive cars, a few race cars in the 19. They made 2 cars with a scooped hood. They made none with a double bubble roof. All but 2 cars had triple bubbles on the hood. 2 cars had the traditional DB4 GT scoop on it. That was Elia Zagato's car, and this one. This is serial number 187L, L for left. It's really known as the Nick Begovic car. This is one of the few cars that did not go back to England from Milan for finishing. It stayed in Italy. It sold in Italy, came to Los Angeles, and Dr. Nick Begovic from Fullerton, California bought the car and had it for years and years and years in his garage. And it was known by everybody as the last Aston Zagato in the barn. It was the show car in Torino in 1961. They only made the car 1 year in 1961. For that show, they shined it up a little bit. And by that I mean, this is usually polished aluminum. This is usually polished aluminum. The wheels and the grille and this bit of shiny here is all chrome versus being polished aluminum. Most of the cars have plexiglass. This car has real glass all the way around. Makes it a little quieter and a little more solid. The bumpers also were for the show to brighten it up a little bit. I think the greatest piece of architecture on this car is this section right here. For me at least, the bumper interrupts that beautiful architecture, but it was born this way, everybody knows it, this car this way, and that's the way it is today. Later on I'll show you under the hood and in the trunk, both spectacular. There's a wonderful story about me acquiring the car from Dr. Begovic. It was in Fullerton, in his garage, that very few people got into. He knew who I was. He knew I was a Zagato body collector. I'd never been to his garage. I went in one day. He knew I was there to look at his Aston Martin. It was up on stands with a cover over it. And my first visit, I could tell by his body language, I was not to touch the cover, and I ended up never seeing the car on that trip. For 3 years, we communicated, we became friends. He had never sold a car in 50 years. By the way, Dr. Begovic passed away 2 months ago. He would have been 99 years old this year. He was a fabulous guy, great taste, great judgment, and bought new cars in the 50s and 60s in Europe when he was there and brought them home, put them in his garage. This was one that he bought in America. Let me show you around the car. So there aren't too many trunks exactly like this. This is a 30-gallon tank, I believe it is. Fillers on both sides. Beautifully done, beautifully hammered out. Multiple fuel pumps on the right-hand side. Tire beautifully tied down. No luggage. Under the hood, just as beautiful. All original, all stock, all correct. Once again, the car was never wrecked, never abused. Again, each of them are a little different here and there throughout, where the windshield washer bag hangs are different here and there. Mine's inside, sometimes they're here. But beautifully done. Runs better than it looks. Couldn't be happier with it.
Hello, my name is Doug Sallin. I've got a 1952 Morgan Plus 4. The car is referred to as a flat radiator car. It was built again in 1952, shipped brand new to San Francisco. The first owner was the district attorney of San Francisco, and we've got a sense of continuous history on the car since then. Cars in the 50s, after World War II, racing cars were dominantly production cars that were morphed into racing or used as street cars that were then turned into used for racing, and this car is of that ilk. We've had this car for 20 years. I've been racing Morgans for about 25.
My name is Steve Rauscher, and this is a 1958 356A Speedster. It's about 150 cars from the end of the Speedster production line. 46 years in our family. My late father owned it. Came out of Boulder, Colorado. It was a beautiful tangerine orange Concours show car when he got it. And when he came back to Los Angeles 2 or 3 months later, he went to get his hair cut. He came out, the car was gone, it was stolen. And about 4 or 5 months later, we got it back with the blue color the thieves put on it in the Santa Cruz Mountains because they were reselling these cars and disguising them. But everything else has been gone through. It's had a later motor and disc brakes for over 50 years on this car. And the engine and transmission was rebuilt. There was some suspension work done and some other goodies. So other than needing a paint job, the car is very well sorted. It's a lot of fun to drive. And I'm trying to hold it at least 50 years before I decide what we're going to do with it. It's got all the original panels. It's got all the original floors. Only the battery box was replaced. All the doors, the deck lids, everything is original to the car. I've had the interior redone and changed the wheels on the car over the years. It had the Fuchs wheels, the spoke wheels for many years. So with the help of myself, Bruce Canepa in Scotts Valley, and a family friend, we were able to get the car back. It's kind of a long story, but at least we got the car back, but it was no longer the show car that it was, so it kind of morphed into an outlaw over the years, and now I'm trying to bring the car somewhat more back to a presentable driver, not so much of an outlaw. So this is a 1966 912 motor, and it has the big Solex carbs, a big bore kit, and some head work done, and also one of Gary Emery's original hand-built Stinger exhaust pipes from the 1980s on the car. So watch your shin, that's all I can tell you. I take it out once a week. I just stretch its legs, and I was in the Bay Area for many years. I've had the car about 10 years now. And it actually had flared fenders for many, many years. The thieves took a bat and they rolled the fenders, and it had flared fenders like a lot of Speedsters did back in the 70s and 80s. And a year or two ago, I had them repaired properly by these great guys in Watsonville called Doghouse Restoration. And then they blended into paint.
Sonora, California, and this is my 1955 XK140 fixed head coupe SE. Was a barn find in 1982. Had been inside the barn for 15 years. Complete body off restoration. That concludes it. 4-year restoration.
Hi, my name's Kent Sokolow. I'm from West Pasadena here in California. I'm proud to bring my 1954 Curtis 500S. This is number 37 of 40. We use it primarily for rallies and for car gatherings. We've shipped it to Europe a few times and done most of the rallies here in the United States. Little story, when I was about 12 years old, my father has a car dealer in Glendale, and I used to go to work with him on Saturdays, so I found Frank Curtis's shop, and I actually walked there every Saturday and watched Frank Curtis and his gang put together these cars. I went there every weekend. He had a little chain over the front of the door there, and I would just hope that he would ask me something to do. So finally, after a few months, he let me sweep the floors, which was somewhat of a highlight for me. And then fast forward 50 years, and a good friend of mine, Roger Morrison, has a Curtis similar to this, and I asked him if he ever heard of one for sale to please get a hold of me. And he called about 2 weeks later and said there's one up in Washington. So I was traveling at the time. I immediately stopped everything, flew to Washington, drove it around the block and bought it. And since I've owned it, I've done a number of modifications to it. This car was sold to me with a small block Chevrolet, and I converted it to a stroker and did some engine work on it. We have navigation in it, we have intercoms in it because you can't hear anything as you're driving the car, and it's been a lot of fun. It's by far my favorite car.
Matching an extensively documented 1954 XK120 SE fixed head coupe, authenticated by Jaguar Heritage, that recently was returned to glory by undergoing an 18-month ground-up rotisserie restoration by the renowned Jaguar restoration team at Classic Showcase in Oceanside, California. The car has yet to be seen in public. The car was acquired from the original owner's family, sadly, after the owner passed at 93 years of age in 2016. The uniquenesses of this car are several. The car has never left Southern California and was a special order placed May 6, 1954 at Charles Hornberg Jaguar in West Los Angeles. This one-of-a-kind special equipment SE included a C-type engine with double SU sandcast carburetors, a racing cam, specific rear-end ratio, special exhaust, chrome wire wheels, and was only one of 10 XK120 fixed-head coupes ever produced by Jaguar to be fitted with a 9-to-1 compression engine. The car went on to race, driven by the owner, at the Bonneville National Speed Trials in 1955 and 1956. In 1956, this car, donning number 242, established the speed record for Jaguars at 131.38 miles per hour, which stood until 1959.
Hello, my name is Doug Barron. I'm from Malibu, California. This is a 1958 Porsche Speedster. It was a car that I found in Hawaii through a friend of mine, Andy Cohen. The body has all been done by a craftsman by the name of Pino. Pino was probably one of the best 356 Speedster and regular 356 restorers around. He's no longer with us, but the paint quality, the gaps, just the finish on the restoration is top quality. As you can see, you can look in the paint, you could shave with the paint quality and the reflection. The interior has all been redone, period correct. It is a non-matching numbers car, but it is a Speedster engine and transmission. And I've owned the car for about 4 years now. I absolutely love driving it. It always gets thumbs up and lots of positive attention. And it's a showstopper. We just came from a Malibu Cars and Coffee where it gets a lot of attention there as well. So I am a member of the Petersen Honor Museum. I love sharing these cars that I own with the public and having them view them. And I'm glad to be a part of this event.
My name is Joseph Salvo, and my wife Shella and I own this 1967 Porsche 911S soft window Targa. Some unique features to this car. 1967 was the first year of the S-Class for Porsche and the 911s. 1967 was also the first year of the Targa Top, replacing the 356 convertible. Very few were built. This is one of 483. Unique to this car is that it was actually purchased and driven for 2 years by the first Porsche dealer in Orange County, Chick Iverson. Chick sold it to the gentleman that we were able to purchase it from in August of 2017. We purchased it with all of the documentation, the original paperwork, even the gentleman's finance docs, and it subsequently went through a 24-month nut and bolt frame-off restoration by Car Park in Costa Mesa. Nothing was left untouched. Every part, every nut, every bolt was restored to as original factory condition, and that's the condition that you see it in today.
Steve Russell, Pasadena, California. This is my 1968 912 Porsche. I've owned the car for about 3 years and was absolutely smitten when I first saw it. Some of the things which I really enjoyed about the car, first of all, the paint. It's metallic blue, which is a very rare color those years. That's the actual name of the color, is metallic blue. But it's got running lights, the AMCO bar. Particularly appreciated the steel wheels for a very classic Porsche look in those years. And I absolutely love the interior with the houndstooth treatment on it. Additionally, it's a 5-speed car with a 5-gauge cluster on the dash. Somewhat rare, I guess. And back to the rear end of the car. And so what I'll do now is start it up for you.
Movie and TV screen used vehicles are those that figured prominently in one or more scenes of a motion picture or episodes of a television series. Driven or raced on screen by one of the main characters, they are normally highly recognizable because they were especially chosen to evoke the feel and the mood of a time or place. Screen-used vehicles have often been endowed with human thought and emotion and were as important to the film as many of the credited actors.
For any old Hollywood aficionados, the sight of this 1959 Ford Fairlane Galaxy could send a chill down your spine. The murderous followers of Charles Manson drove around in a car just like this in the 1960s. Thinking it would be too creepy to use the original Manson car in production, this car was customized to match the original Manson car for use in Quentin Tarantino's Academy Award-winning movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is the only car of its kind made for the film. It began its life with a black body before the production team repainted and weathered the car to match the original Manson car. The vehicle features a cracked white and black leather interior, a V8 engine, and a new 350 turbo automatic transmission added for the ease of the actors.
So this is one of 5 Porsche 906 race cars that was built specifically for the movie Ford v Ferrari. This car in particular was built to portray the original chassis number 906017 Carrera 6 prototype.
Over the period of the last 6 months, I've kind of chased down parts on eBay like these Bosch running lights. These are the exact lights that the original 906 prototype had. I got original Dunlop racing tires, which are actually the exact tires that those cars ran back in the 60s. And I had a set of Porsche wheels made up in the dimensions that they would have been. For endurance races, a lot of the cars would have these lights right here that illuminated the roundel or the gumball that showed the number of the car, just so they could keep track of the position a lot easier. I tracked down, this is actually the original license plate registration number for the car that was issued by Germany. The S stands for Stuttgart, and that's the original registration that the 906017 prototype originally had. It's not something you just hop in, turn a key, and you're off. Once you are in the car, you strap in, you click that steering wheel into place.
You're rewarded with just this otherworldly driving experience.
Los Angeles never looked so good as when Brad Pitt's character, Cliff Booth, drove this circa 1968 Volkswagen Karmann Ghia in Quentin Tarantino's Academy Award-winning film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This car was chosen for the film as an homage to the one driven by Uma Thurman in Tarantino's Kill Bill Volume 2, with a custom paint job personally requested by the director. A purposeful anachronism, this blue paint job was only offered on factory vehicles beginning in 1971. This is one of 2 Karmann Ghias used for the production and was specifically used for more aggressive driving sequences. It features a Field Auto Group manual valve body, reverse pattern transmission, and a 2.5-liter Subaru engine from Jazz Products installed for the actor's ease. Firebird comes directly from the production of Quentin Tarantino's Academy Award-winning film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Driven by Samantha Robinson as Abigail Folger, most memorably when she drove Margot Robbie's Sharon Tate home to the Los Angeles house that she shared with Roman Polanski. The vehicle features the trademark ridged elongated snout front with a black leather and polished chrome interior, a black vinyl roof, and a body painted Mayfair Maize yellow by production to match the real-life Folger car. It has a turbo 400 CI all WS6 transmission.
Off-road vehicles embody a ruggedness and go-anywhere capability that lends itself to the kind of motoring adventure that can only be experienced when the pavement ends. Normally having exceptionally high ground clearance for traversing rough terrain, they're usually four-wheel drive, and they're frequently equipped with roll bars, extra lights, and snorkels through which fresh air can be channeled to the intake system in the event that the mechanical components become submerged underwater. Post-war special interest vehicles are normally series-produced vehicles that retain their factory specifications, but which are considered noteworthy because of their rarity, optional equipment, body types, and other factors that differentiate them from other automobiles of their eras. They are of interest to enthusiasts and historians because of the often subtle differences from more mainstream vehicles of the day.
My name is Steve Rimmer, and welcome to Snoqualmie, Washington, the home of Dirtfish Rally School. As you may tell by my accent, I grew up in the north of England and grew up around rally cars, hence the involvement and the commencement of Dirtfish Rally School here in Snoqualmie. Rallying also introduced me to a significant passion for cars, and the car that sits right behind me, the Audi Sport Quattro, is one of my boyhood dreams. It's a car which I remember watching Hannu Mikkola, Bjorn Valdegard, Walter Roll drive through the forests of Grisdale and Greystoke in the north of England. And thankfully, I'm fortunate today to own the Malachite Green, one of 5 Malachite Green cars produced of 200 to satisfy homologation requirements of the Group B era. This car is a standard road-going car, 5-cylinder, 300 horsepower, turbocharged car, and in the day a relatively heavy car. So with the Audi, significant efforts were made to reduce weight. They started in the power unit, where aluminum engine blocks were used to lighten the weight of the car. In addition to that, the bodywork is carbon composite, and if you look carefully on the front hood of this car, you can see the weave of the composite material under the paint. This particular car has a fascinating story attached to it, and it relates to the original owner. Back in the 1980s, there was a very famous and successful UK-based rally and rallycross driver named Tom Hammond. Tom had been very successful in his career, and he wanted to own and drive a works Audi Quattro Sport. He called the factory on several occasions, and even with his credentials was unable to convince Audi to sell him one of the factory-produced Group B Audi Sports. Ultimately, he accepted that he might not be able to get a car, but he did order a road car, this very car behind me. On arriving at the delivery center, Tom noticed an Audi Works Quattro on a stand in the corner of the delivery center. He asked the question that you would expect him to ask, whose is that car? And the factory said to him, that's a prototype, it's for display. And he said, I want to buy it. Ultimately, after what I've been told were several hours of negotiation, the factory ultimately agreed to sell him the works car. Now the next problem, how do I get it home? So Tom decided that this road-going Audi Quattro would be fitted with a tow bar, and he would buy a trailer in Germany. So started a very special relationship between Tom, the green road car, and the factory Group B rally car. Tom towed the car from Germany back to the UK. Tom proceeded to use the green Audi Sport Quattro as his tow car for his rally car for the rest of his career. Some Group B cars can be described as garage queens, certainly not appropriate for the Audi Sport Quattro behind me. This car has been a workhorse. In fact, right now, the car has 136,000 well-traveled miles. The car is unrestored. It's in its original condition, and it's as much a pleasure to drive today as it was when it was produced in 1984.
Greetings, I'm Louis Straney. We're in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm proud to be part of the Petersen Virtual 2020 Concours with my 1965 Land Rover Series 2A. Notice the desert water bag as we walk around inside the engine bay. Unrebuilt engine, all original Solex carburetor, oil bath filter. I'll shut the hood so you can see the bonnet. British military shovel, cross-country gear, butler lamp. Refurbished interior, 4-speed, forward gears, Terry, overdrive, perfect condition. The tub, fully equipped for shooting brake experience, British infield sheath, crossbow, fly rod, transatlantic radio. As we move along the passenger side, the steel cap for the petrol engine. The Warren lockout hubs. And thanks again to the Petersen.
Hey, what's up everybody? Taylor with KC Lights here, and today I'm here on behalf of our owner, Alan Wang, who's also the owner of this 1969 Jeep Wagoneer. So let's take a little bit of a quick look at what this vehicle is all about. From the ground up, this vehicle has been completely restored, and that's everything from the drivetrain to the paint to the interior to everything else in between. So up above, we've got our Gravity LED Pro 6 light bar up on top of our custom-made MRAX roof rack. We've got all of our lights surrounding the rest of the thing. It's sitting on 37-inch tall BFG tires. It's got the classic Warren winch on it, fully custom paint job, brand new suspension underneath, brand new axles. It's got a Chevy motor in it, a Chevy V8. So let's hop inside and take a look inside as well, because it's not just the exterior that we did. We also did the interior as well. So as we come inside, you can first see the PRP seats. It's got a Holley EFI system inside of it. It's got Rockford Fosgate audio. And one of my favorite aspects of this Jeep Wagoneer is the MagnaFlow exhaust on it. So let's crank this thing up and see how she sounds. Sounds pretty good. So thank you all for watching. This is our 1969 Jeep Wagoneer.
Jim Grundy, here to tell you about the Thomas Flyers and show you ours. In 1900, E.R. Thomas converted his bicycle company to make automobiles. First a 1-cylinder, 8-horsepower car, then 3 cylinders, then 4, and then a massive 740 cubic inch 6-cylinder car, fitted on a 140-inch chassis, making it one of the biggest cars in the world. To prove the reliability of his cars, E.R. Thomas was a late entry in the first round-the-world race starting in New York, ending in Paris. Behind me is a picture of the car leading the pack at the start out of New York. He never was in second place, he led the entire race. Now with that intro, we're going to take you to our 1910 Thomas Flyer and show you one that's ready for the show field. We're looking at the engine of the 1910 Thomas Flyer Flyabout. You just heard it running down the driveway, and now you can hear why it makes such a noise. You can see it's a massive 6-cylinder T-head configuration. T-head means there's a spark plug on this side and this side, but the pistons are in the center. The combustion chamber is an oval across the top. A unique part of this car that you'll see is there's not only 6 spark plugs, 12 spark plugs for dual ignition, but 18 spark plugs for this car, which has a coil and a twin spark magneto system. The total cubic displacement of this engine is just shy of 750 cubic inches, and it produces about 80 horsepower, massive for its time, powerful enough to have allowed Thomas Flyer in 1908 to win the first round of the world race. The oiling system is unique. This is the oiling system here. And if you look closely below the cylinders, you'll see all the little oil lines that lubricate all the chassis. And this is done on a sequential timing cycle. One pumps, then the next pumps all the way through till over the course of about 15 minutes, everything on the chassis gets a little shot of oil to keep it lubricated. This is the dashboard of the 1910 Thomas Flyer Flyabout. Some very unique features here. If we start on the left, when we looked at the engine, we talked about the coil box. Well, here it is. If you could ever imagine something so primitive, but here we have a shaft with lobes all around, and that shaft rotates from the camshaft and fires the spark on each one of these probes, which goes to the extra set of spark plugs on the cylinder. Alongside of this, we have something that's very, very rare. I think there are only 2 or 3 in existence. It's called a Jones Live Map. We joke with it as the first GPS. This particular chart, because it has lots of charts that you can put in here, and it's driven by a gear on the front axle. This chart is from Philadelphia at City Hall to New York at Times Square. And as you drive along, the chart rotates and tells you where to turn along the route. Last, we have a tachometer. Very, very unusual on these cars, but because the engine is so massive and the crankcase is so big, you don't want to take the revs too high, so we use a tachometer to make sure we're not getting close to red line, which is probably somewhere around 17 or 1800 RPMs. We've never been there.
Hi, my name's Steve Rimmer and welcome to Snoqualmie, Washington, the home of Dirtfish Rally School. We're here today to showcase one of the key Group B era cars in the rally world, the Lancia 037 Stradale. The 037 was developed by Lancia to address the Group B era requirements. The Group B era required 200 cars in standard road form to be built, to comply with homologation rules of the FIA. The car being rear-wheel drive was actually the last rear-wheel drive car to win the manufacturer's World Rally Championship in 1983. It is powered by a 4-cylinder supercharged engine instead of a turbocharged engine like the Audis of the era. This particular 037 is a road version of the 037. It was originally delivered to Italy and lived there for a number of years before moving to Switzerland. The Swiss owner actually upgraded the car slightly in terms of adding some Evo 1 modifications to the car, and the car competed in some sprints and also some hill climbs. Ultimately, the car was sold in the early 2000s to the north of England, and I purchased the car from the owner who was living in Manchester. The 037 is somewhat quirky and not like your typical Italian stallion cars that Concours d'Elegance attendees would see in the Ferrari shows. The Group B cars were purpose-built to qualify for the homologation purpose, and as such, one could look at this car and say it's more representative of a kit car than it is of a fine Italian piece of automotive art. When you look at this car, you'll see mismatching gaps between the panels. You'll even see mismatching paint to some extent, but that was not the purpose of this car. This car was purposely built for Group B. Some of the other quirkiness about the car includes corduroy seats, built for comfort, almost like velour of the 1970s. One of the other strange attributes of the car is actually the dash top. When we were doing a small refurbishment of the car, we had to look and see what material had been used because we needed to replace the dash cover. And in fact, we determined that in the day, the Italians used neoprene, or otherwise known as wetsuit material, to cover the dash. So although we look at this car and say it's red, it's Italian, it's what you might expect, really it's what you expect in terms of performance, but up close and personal, it's very much basic, functional, and not really that pretty.
My name is John Blymeyer. I live in Hopewell, New Jersey, and this is my 1965 Mercedes Finback Preservation Class. It's not a typical Preservation Class car in that it has never been a barn find, and it was not someone's pride and joy stored for 5 decades in a bag of inert gas. Rather, this is a car that has been in continuous single-family use for 55 years. My father purchased this car in November of 1965. He got it as a special deal because it was an executive car. It had been used by the management of the newly formed Mercedes-Benz of North America. Subsequently, we found out that it was driven by Rudolf Uhlenhaut during a business trip to the United States. Mr. Uhlenhaut was at that time the director of passenger car development for Mercedes-Benz. But previously, he had been the legendary leader of the Mercedes-Benz Silver Arrow racing team, which was virtually unbeatable during the 1950s. This car features 4-speed manual transmission on the column. It has front-wheel disc brakes and rear independent suspension by swing axle. The engine is an overhead camshaft, 2-liter compression ignition diesel. This is no trailer queen, but it has won People's Choice Awards in Mercedes Club events on numerous occasions. It was featured on the cover of the Star magazine once and was on the Mercedes stand at the New York International Auto Show in 2009 when the president of MB USA introduced a new generation of diesel vehicles for the US market. I drove this car to my high school graduation, and I will drive it to my 70th birthday party in a couple of weeks. It is the subject of a provision in my will. Isn't that the essence of preservation, class?
This is my 1935 Fraser-Nash BMW 319 Type 45, which I bought as a complete wreck in 1987. There were many missing parts and extensive body and frame rot. Over the next 30 years, with the difficulties of sourcing replacement parts, I managed to build her to her current condition. The seats have been reupholstered with all new leather, and the dashboard is now very original. The restoration required a complete new floor pan, scuttle and wooden body frame. A straight-six 1900cc engine with twin Solex carburetors and a sports cam, producing a useful 90 brake horsepower and driving the rear axle through a 4-speed box. The original fuel tank has been converted to a handy storage space. A competitive car from the outset in hill climb, sprints and driving tests. At Brooklands 1936. The RAC Rally 1936.
Ferrari Grand Touring cars are normally two-seat vehicles designed for comfortable, long-distance, ultra-high-speed driving by those desiring a vehicle that offers an exclusive motoring experience in addition to world-renowned quality and performance. Driving a Ferrari Grand Touring vehicle identifies its occupants as automobile aficionados who are unusually successful, sophisticated, and extroverted with a youthful spirit.
Hello everyone, I'm submitting for my father, Thad McLaurin, his 2003 Ferrari 575M Maranello in Rosso Corsa with a beige interior. In this update to Ferrari's 550 Maranello, our 575M comes with the optional 6-speed F1 transmission, which was first introduced in the F355s in 1997. The 575M has a dual overhead cam 48-valve V12 with an all-aluminum block and heads. The 5748cc V12 produces 508 horsepower at 7,250 RPM and 434 pound-feet of torque at 5,250 RPM. In an August 2002 article in Car and Driver, they reported a 0 to 62 time of 4.2 to 4.3 seconds with a standing quarter-mile time of 12.3 seconds and a drag-limited top speed of 202. The 575M also offered a launch control feature which requires one to activate sport mode, disable the traction control, and apply the brake while revving the engine up to 5,250 RPM and then release the brake. Thank you all for your consideration and the chance to participate in this virtual event. Good day.
and I'm the owner of this 1962 Ferrari 250 GTE 2+2 Series 2, serial number 4073 GT. I bought this car in May of 1981, the weekend that Gilles Villeneuve won the Monaco Grand Prix. The car was in really, really bad shape when I bought it. It had been left out for years in the weather and in the rain. The leather was all dried up and curled up. The body was rusted, and it was white at the time. The car was in California because it was built for the U.S. market, since the instrumentation is all in English. It has the original license plate. In the late 1980s and into the 90s, I had the car restored, fully restored, in Atlanta, Georgia, under the guidance of John Appen. And in 2009, I had the engine completely torn down and rebuilt by Juan Villarreal of Grand Prix Motors in Campbell, California. The car has been a joy to have. It only has 63,000 miles on it, and it's been well tended to since I have taken ownership of it. It's a 2+2 configuration. It took 6 Connelly hide leathers to complete the interior. And we have the original headliner, and everything is completely original because I've been the owner for so long. Inside, I'm going to give it a start. Show you what's under the hood, which is pretty special. It's a 3-liter V12. It runs very, very strong. I've entered this in a number of concourses and taken home a few medals, which has been a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this clip of this beautiful car, and have a great day. Thank you.
Bye. From Naples, Florida, and I'm happy to be showing you this 1994 Ferrari 512 TR in classic Rosso Corsa, with the literal translation of that being racing red. One of the unique features of this vehicle is the upgraded wheels, just to give the car a little bit of extra glitz. Another unique feature is the vertical insert in the side strakes. This part came factory standard painted black, but in this particular case it came from the factory painted red. Similarly, the exterior engine cover plate comes factory standard painted black, and in this case again from the factory came painted red, so something again a little unique. We'll open up the engine bay for you so you can take a look at the engine. As you can see, this car has a flat 12-cylinder engine. It also has an upgraded Capristo exhaust, just to give the sound of the car a little extra boost. And we'll make our way around the rest of the car and then head to the interior, where you can see it has a classic tan leather interior. It's actually very comfortable. Another unique feature about this vehicle is the dashboard. As you'll notice, the entire dashboard is tan. Factory standard, the bottom would be tan and the top would be black, but in this case it came from the factory completely tan. So now I'll try to start the car for you and give you a little listen.
Hello, my name is Pedro Vela from the Miles Collier collection at the Revs Institute, and this is our 1962 Ferrari 400 Super America, one of 14 coupe aerodynamicas designed by Pinin Farina. This vehicle carries a unique history, having belonged to Enzo Ferrari himself, starting its life out as chassis number 3097 SA under Mr. Ferrari's ownership. He reconditioned the vehicle into a new car and sold it through his dealers as chassis number 4031 SA. Since then, 4031 has been unrestored, features its original interior as well as its powerful V12 4-liter Colombo designed engine. The paint on this car has been partially resprayed using its original type of lacquer, but still carrying a subtle patina with over 10,000 kilometers of road tours. Due to its unique history, color, and originality, Mr. Collier decided to acquire the car and has showcased it in countless tours around the country. Every 400 Super America is different. Customers were given the option of nose design, interior color, and instrument panel arrangement, to name a few. Here, we can take a closer look at the interior configuration of our 400 Super America. Next, we'll take the car outside, fire it up, and you'll be able to hear the wonderful symphony this V12 creates.
Thank you, Petersen Museum, for accepting my entry. This is an honor. I'm Felipe de Jesus Gonzalez, Sr. My wife, Marty, and I have owned this 1982 Ferrari 308 GTSI for 10 years. I bought it on Black Friday in 2010. I borrowed a truck from one friend, borrowed a trailer from another, and brought it home by myself. Loading any car by yourself is scary. Loading a Ferrari by yourself is suicide. It all worked out. When I got home, my children were extra eyes while unloading it. At the time, I didn't have garage space, so a third friend helped me by storing it at his place. 4 years ago, I took it apart to reshoot it in the original Rosso Corsa. While the car was never wrecked, was straight, and looked great, it didn't look fantastic. Ferraris of this vintage were originally painted with single stage paint. I just couldn't get it to have that pop. While it was dismantled, I took the opportunity to clean the engine and transaxle with a wire toothbrush, rebuilt the Coney shocks, replaced all suspension bushings, powder-coated all suspension parts, rebuilt the brakes, replaced the steering rack, installed stainless steel headers, refurbished the interior, and addressed any other issues I found, such as a new oil cooler, new AC compressor, and replaced the valves and valve guides with modern technology. The car is tight, drives strong, and is so much fun to drive. I've tracked it at Willow Springs and had a blast.
My name's Tatsuo Otis. We're in Patrick Otis Company, my dad's shop, and I'm standing in front of our 1955 Ferrari 750 Monza, chassis number 0510. This car was new in 1955 and raced by both Phil Hill and Carroll Shelby at that time. Its first race, where it finished second overall, was at the 12 Hours of Sebring in '55. And then it continued to get run by the pair at various races. It ran in '55 and '56 in the Del Monte Trophy at Pebble Beach, and both of those guys won both those years in it. And then it continued on to be run by Jim Hall It was kind of his first race car, and he took his first win in it. And he ran it kind of into the late 50s, and then it sat until we acquired it a few years ago at public auction. When we got the car, we wanted to take it all apart because it hadn't been run since the 50s, right? So it's been sitting for a really long time. We had two goals in mind. We wanted to show it and do well at events like Amelia Island and Pebble Beach. And we also wanted to race the car at big historic venues. So it's a little bit complicated to kind of do both those things and do it right. Luckily, there's a lot of photographic evidence from when it ran. So we got kind of every single detail right with the car that we possibly could, going back together. To get it to be ready for the racetrack, we took the motor apart, we took the transaxle apart. Some of the mechanical parts of this car are somewhat complicated, and they were ahead of its time. So getting those just right and ready to run took a little bit of effort, but I think we did a really great job with it. We were successful on the racetrack as well. So, you know, we're really happy. We're really pleased to be able to share that steering wheel and bring it back to life today. In 2019, it was a pretty significant year for both the car and us, and luckily we got it in before everything that's happening now. But we finished the restoration on this car, and it was the first time bringing it back to pretty much anything since the late 50s. We showed the car at Pebble Beach and Amelia Island. We won our class in both venues. And we also raced it in the Motorsports Reunion at Monterey, along with a couple other smaller events locally. And we were successful in both of those as well. We were the fastest Ferrari at Laguna. Something we're really proud about with this car is we were able to demonstrate that you can both race the car competitively and also show it on an international platform competitively, and do both on the same weekend if you want to. And that's part of what we do here at our shop and what we want to provide to other people, but it was a real honor to be able to do it for ourselves as well.
Hot rods and customs are derived from existing vehicles that craftsmen and women from all walks of life have personally modified mechanically to enhance their performance or customized aesthetically to enhance their appearance. These aficionados applied their creativity to craft a near infinite variety of vehicles that serve to express their talents and highly individual tastes. And the vehicles they build are often so closely associated with them that the name becomes a part of their vehicle's identity.
Hi, this is Tony Catropa from Seal Beach, California. I'm here showing my 1930 Model A coupe with a rumble seat. This car was built in August 1930, and the price at that time was $525. The paint is lacquer. On the top is copper drab. The bottom lighter color is chicle drab, and all the Model A's had black fenders. The wheels were an option from the dealer, and they had straw color yellow wheels with a straw color pinstripe. The engine was rebuilt and modernized a little bit with the hardened seat valve so we could run the regular high-test gas. It has a Lighten flywheel and a V8 clutch. When we rebuilt the carburetor, we found that it was a little bit lacking. So I was able to locate a Winfield downdraft carburetor, which was a racing carburetor of the 1930s. So in effect, it is era correct. The rear end was rebuilt and has 354 gears. I purchased this car as a barn find in 1980, and we took every nut and bolt and took it apart and cleaned it and repurposed it and put it all back together. The restoration was completed by Classic Motor Car Company and assistance from Bill Schaefer and Ty Fromke. The end result was a Model A that was as close as possible to being stock, however, some minor upgrades. I am a member of the MOFCA, which is Model A Ford Club of America. Our local chapter is the Santa Anita A's in Arcadia. Thank you very much for letting me show you my car.
Hello, my name is Murray Paff. I'm from Royal Oak, Michigan, and I'd like to introduce you to my 1959 Imperial Speedster. This car was built in a 2.5 car garage by 10 buddies, every one of them a volunteer, over the course of 10,000 documented man hours in 4.5 years. We took a 1959 Imperial 4-door sedan and cut it into 46 major pieces. We shortened the car in 5 different areas for a total of 4 feet 3 inches. We then sectioned the car 3 inches, and then we narrowed the car 8 inches and channeled it as well over the top of a Schwartz G-Machine chassis, a total of 5 inches. It features a 6.1 Hemi, has a Dodge Viper independent rear suspension. We'll give you a peek of what was done under the hood here. There is the 6.1 Hemi, complete with its Hemi style valve covers, which took over 120 hours alone to fabricate. The intake manifold was turned 180 degrees on the engine so that the throttle body was hidden in a special compartment fed by the cowl vent to make up the air. The front nose cone is a 57 Chevy bumper bullet with a custom CNC machined fin bullet to match the taillights to kind of make that look like a faux intake. This car is a 2-seat speedster, really a nod to the 2-seat sports car that Chrysler never built until they came out with the Dodge Viper in 1991. This was a what-if to a gentleman's GT to compete against Corvette and Thunderbird in the late 50s. It features all Imperial design elements. They've just been rearranged and massaged. These dash clusters came out of a 1960 Imperial, just simply because I like the bullet shapes. We'll start the car up for you. It retains all the push button features, including transmission selector, full leather interior with plaid inserts. The car has driven from New York to Naples, Charlotte to Beverly Hills. It's driven in LA rush hour traffic over the potholed streets of Detroit. I've autocrossed it, I've drag raced it, and it's completed 2 hot rod power tours. I have currently over 7,000 miles on this car that I've put on it in the past 10 years that it's been on the road. I appreciate the opportunity to show it to you, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Hello, this is George Garrett, and I'm from Huntington Beach, California. You're looking at my 1939 Ford Deluxe Coupe. I've owned the car since 1994, and when we first got it, it was in just wretched shape, and it was quickly determined that it needed a full frame-off restoration. So I did some of that work, but I have to tell you that I engaged a lot of professional help. If I hadn't done that, I'd probably still be working on the car. You can see that the old coupes here just had this enormous trunk But I wanted to focus mainly on the interior here. It's got the original type of mohair fabric on the seat. It's got the wood grained dash, which was stock equipment on these cars back in 1939. I've added the tack up there, as you can see. It's got the shifter on the floor, and that's where it was. This is the last year for the floor shift until you got up into the T-Bird era. The seat it's got a one-piece seat in it, and the seat is really hinged up at the top, so it swings out like that. There's a storage compartment behind the seat. That's between the trunk and the seat. Let's move around here a bit, and let's get up and take a look at the engine. The engine is a Ford Flathead V8, and it's a 59L block. And the 59Ls had, they were a truck block made up in Canada. They had more nickel in them, and hot rodders just loved them. This is probably a three-quarter level as far as hot rodding is concerned. It's got the 2 2s on it. It's got the Schneider 550 cam. It's got a scat crank in it, and probably has about 255 cubic inches. It's got the electronic ignition and the Fenton headers for the dual exhaust. Let's pop down the hood and let's just see what it looks like with the hood up. I think it's really a handsome car. I'm really pleased with it. One of the nice features on the car is that I've got the Columbia 2-speed rear end in it. And that's just like shifting into 4th gear. It just makes you can cruise out there at 60, 65 comfortably, so you can stay up with traffic with no problems at all. Let's go ahead and start it up for you so you can sort of hear what it sounds like, at least inside the car. It's already got the keys in it. Let's turn on the ignition switch and hit the starter button. Runs good, sounds good. Hope you enjoyed the tour. I want to thank Petersen for putting this whole thing on.
Hi, my name is David Larry, and this is my 1932 All-Henry Ford Vicky built by Roy Brizio Street Rods. The paint color is British Racing Green, painted by Daryl Hollenbeck. The engine is an Arden supercharged 301 cubic inch aluminum block with a 471 Krager blower built by H&H Flatheads. The engine is backed up by a Tremec 5-speed and a Winners Champ quick change. The front and rear wheels are Hallebrand pin drive magnesium wheels with Dunlop racing tires and finned aluminum hydraulic drum brakes. Most of the suspension is nickel plated, including the 5-inch drop axle. You notice the interior is all leather interior done by Sid Shavers, and the 32 dash is a modified dash to fit the 5-inch Stuart Warner gauges.
Hi, my name is Mel. This is my car. It's a 1935 Auburn Boattail Speedster. It was kind of America's supercar back in the day. It held 70 speed records, and the company was in Auburn, Indiana, and it's part of the Duesenberg Cord Empire. Let's see here. This car is a hot rod. It's got 5.7 liter supercharged engine in it. It's got latest amenities like a subwoofer, Bluetooth, high-end sound system, shoots flames out of the tailpipes, 3-foot flames. It's just a really fun car to drive, and I did a ground-up restoration on this about 4 years ago. I've had the car about 14 years, and it used to be yellow, and now it's black and silver. Also has automatic cutouts. It could be quiet like this, or if I do this, it could go.
This is Judy Watson showing you my 1932 Ford two-door sedan for the hot rod class. She was designed, engineered, and built by the Rolling Bones Hot Rod Shop in upstate New York in a 50s Lakes Racer style, with the paint inspired by an early pedal car build. The original Ford frame was pinched and bobbed, suspension was influenced by the Doane Spencer Roadster, and the chop is 5 and 5.5 inches back to front. The shop made an aluminum louvered full belly pan, interior panels, and garnish moldings, also the roll cage and vintage leather seats. In honor of my Army Air Corps father, we added some World War II aircraft gauges and instruments. The steering box is by Schroeder, and for the drivetrain, a Halbrand 378 quick change and TKO 600 behind the 427 Ford FE side oiler, which I assembled under strict supervision by Ted Eaton in Texas. Even with the vintage-style Firestone tires, and in spite of being somewhat rowdy, we've made a couple 5,000-mile cross-country road trips and been at the 2018 Rolling Bones gathering at the Grand National Roadster Show, the 2019 Denver Timing Association Retrospective, and the 2020 Amelia Island Concours. We're also on a pit crew at Bonneville Speed Week, run at the Hot Rod Dirt Drags and Hill Climb in Colorado, and Flash Mob Drag Races at El Mirage. And now she will speak for herself.
Good morning, fans of the Petersen Museum. My name is Hot Rod Ron Carlston. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And in 2002, I decided to buy a 1932 5-window coupe with 227 bullet holes in it. 13 years later, and a lot of hard work and a lot of hot summers in Phoenix, Arizona, we have this 1932 Ford 5-window coupe. It is chopped 3 inches from stock on original 32 frame. Has split wishbone suspension front and rear. Front suspension consists of 32 split wishbones, 32 heavy dropped axle, 40 Ford Lincoln brakes, and then self-energizing brakes. And then we also have SoCal shocks. Front spreader bar is actually another axle that was bent that I cut up and turned into a chrome push bar. Headlights are Guide 682s, which was an aftermarket item that you could buy through J.C. Whitney. Car is straight black toner paint with a clear coat. Absolutely no color whatsoever. The exhaust is 36 Ford drive shaft tubes. That's something that they would have done way back in the day. Wheels are 16 by 3.5 V8 60 wheels in the front. Rears are 16 by 4 40 Ford. And then again, it's chopped 3 inches. Tail lights are kind of an interesting story. Tail lights are 1955 Volkswagen Bug, turned around backwards, so they're instantly recessed. Push bar for the back is Model T axle, cut and chromed. That's my club here in town, the Midnighters of Phoenix. Here's the other side right here. Same thing. We'll come in on the inside real quick. And the dash is kind of an unusual situation. Dash on the left side is 55 Sunbeam convertible. On the right side is 55 Volkswagen Bug ashtray and glove box. Steering wheel is 55 Buick. And then the seat is Dodge Caravan middle seat, upholstered by one of the top upholstery shops here in Phoenix in Porsche blue leather. Door panels are aircraft aluminum diamond plate interior. I'll get a close-up of the diamond plate right there. That have been bead blasted flat and then sprayed with a flat clear. And then we'll get to the part that everybody's probably waiting to see. That's the motor. The motor, at first, everybody thinks is a 283. It's actually a 350 Corvette motor with 57 Corvette valve covers, 57 Corvette generator with custom generator mount, and of course the piece that stumps everybody is the exhaust. Those are Fenton dual dump straight exhaust. They came on 55 Chevy Black Widow race cars. They were only made for 6 months, so it's kind of a rare deal. Of course, a stock firewall. Close-up of the suspension in the front. And then of course the thing that everybody wants to hear is they want to hear how it sounds. So let's step inside real quick as we get keys. Of course, this is what the view looks like from the inside. And of course the best part. By the way, I would like to thank Biltmore Resort in Phoenix, Arizona. It's one of the oldest resorts, started in 1903. One of the beautiful grounds for me to shoot on real quick. Thanks again for coming to the Petersen Car Show. I'm Hot Rod Ron. You can check me out on Hot Rod Ron Instagram. You can also check out my website, checkeredstrip.com, and also on LinkedIn, Hot Rod Ron Carlston.
I think everybody needs to have a hot rod in their life, and this is my hot rod. It's a 1932 Ford four-door sedan. It has a Ford engine. It has a Gurney Westlake 427 cubic inch small block. It makes 580 horsepower. It's got a 5-speed transmission, 6-piston brakes. I really enjoy slow cars, so that's why this car's got all that stuff. It's chopped 4 inches. It's a full fendered original car. When I first purchased this car, it was a 18,000 mile original car. So anyway, it's really nice. It actually drives great, and you can roll up the windows and turn on the heater and turn on the air conditioning and cruise down the road as much as you want. So I've had a number of people ask me why I would build a 4-door car with a back seat for a hot rod, and I said, well, it's easier to put 3 people in the car and scare all of them at one time than have to drive one person at a time.
My name is Peter Bradford. I live in Arbuckle, California, which is north of Sacramento, 50 miles on Interstate 5. My car is a Hupmobile, which is not well known. They went into production in 1909 and basically were defunct in 1937. They did manufacture a little bit after that. This car is a Model J. It's a 4-door. The rear door handles have been taken off because it looks like a 2-door sedan with those handles off as the window comes up and down. You can see the interior of the car. Quite proud of the car. We'll show you the engine compartment, and it doesn't have very many miles on it. I have several other cars, and so I don't drive them very much. But it handles and drives very extremely well. I'll start the engine for you.
It's my 1937 Ford Hudson pickup trucks. All custom.
This is the 1959 Buick LeSabre Custom Concept. My name is Barry Penfound. LeSabre is the first of 8 customs built by Penfound Design and features the original, rebuilt, and modified 364 cubic inch nailhead engine and automatic transmission. Modifications include a smoothed body with a custom grille and bumpers, 1962 Impala bucket seats and console with an upholstered trunk, Ride Tech suspension, 18 by 20 inch hot rod by Boyd wheels, and PPG custom mix white and silver paint are some of the other features. The car has been featured in Hot Rod, Custom Rodder, and a dozen other magazines, and has won many awards, including a Boyd Coddington Pros Pick and ISCA Best Custom Pick.
Competition vehicles are highly specialized for driving contests, such as oval, track, or long-distance racing, acceleration contests, such as drag racing, and top speed contests, such as running on dry lakes or at Bonneville. Offering a minimum of driver comfort, they possess a combination of speed and acceleration for head-to-head racing against other vehicles on tracks or road courses, or precise steering and handling for precision driving contests such as rallies or drift racing.
Okay, hi. This is the 1933 and 34 Wonder Bread Special Indy car that ran those 2 years. It was actually built in 1931, and it ran as the Hoosier Pete Special for 2 years. And in the 2 years, it had a Clemens engine in it, and it was the Hoosier Pete, which was a gas station chain in Indiana at the time. And they sponsored the car for 31, 32. And then in 33, this car became the Wonder Bread car, and they took out the Clemens engine that wasn't that successful and installed a Model A Duesenberg racing engine in it at that time, in which it ran the next 2 years with the configuration of the Duesenberg engine along with the Wonder Bread livery. Anyway, it was built by Cotton Henning, which was a famous, very famous riding mechanic at the time, and he also was in the car. I guess I heard a little bit for the practicing and everything else. And there you have it, really. And it's kind of a fun thing. The history on the car really comes down to the Wonder Bread livery, which is a great sponsor to get during the height of the Depression. And anyway, making a long story short, the gentleman, Taggart, who founded the Wonder Bread Company, went to the races when he was very young, and he thought the balloons and the hot air balloons in the early days in 09 and 10 were really outstanding. And then they started releasing balloons for the start of the Indianapolis 500. Most people don't realize that really the balloons, or the dots as a lot of people think they are, they're really balloons signifying the start of the Indianapolis 500. So anyway, this is kind of its presentation, as I said, from 1933 and 34.
Old Yeller 2 Buick Special. It's a home-built special chrome moly chassis. Max and Ina Belchowski from Los Angeles at Hollywood Motors built this from chalk lines on the garage floor. A 401 1959 motor with Strongberg 97 carburetors, and the reason Max always picked a Buick is the incredible torque, and this has 6,400 cc's, and it is potent. As owner of the Old Yeller 2, it's a special responsibility and tribute to Max and Ina. I was good friends with Max and Ina, but Max gave me all the archives for this car before I even had a chance to buy the car. So it's designated responsibility to honor and pay tribute to Max and Ina, good friends that passed on. And so wherever we race internationally, in England and New Zealand or Australia, we always take time to honor Max and Ina.
Hi, my name is Brandon Adrian, and this is the Sebring Spider. This is a 1956 Giulietta Spider Veloce that was made for Sebring 12-hour in 1957. Alfa-Romeo had the famous tuner Conrero tune the car. It came over to an Alfa dealer named Jake Kaplan through Max Hoffman. And the sole purpose for this car was to enter the Sebring 12-hour. It's one of about 3 Alfa Spiders that were entered that year, and this is the car that won its class. So it's actually the first Alfa Romeo in the United States to win an FIA event, which is a remarkable thing. It's highly original. It's, you can go around the car and see it. It's pretty much how it raced in period. It still has its original tech stickers from 1957 and 8 at Sebring, which are in the glove and the dash. You can go around the car and see it. It has a quick change filler, so this was done by Alfa Romeo so that on the 12-hour you could have your pit crew quickly change the gas tank. After Sebring in '57 was the Mille Miglia. The car never went, but it was planning on going this year to finish what it didn't do. And it's actually got these are the tech stickers for certification, but in the dash are the original tech stickers. So yeah, we can open it. So you got to do this leather buckle, old school, and you can see everything is highly original inside. It's actually a matching numbers engine, which is just amazing. So yeah. Yeah. Let me, it's quiet because
the race, you're strapped in. It's nervousness, but there's calmness to it too. And then it's like, bam. I bought my first car when I was 13. It was a Model A Ford. I think that's Southern California. Everything revolved around the automobile. This was the freedom to go from place to place. And if you could go in your hot rod, it was fun. 1980, I bought an old Model A Ford again. When I met Scott Banowski, we really started working together on the car. There was a desire to make a beautiful car that was iconic, but in the back of my mind, I wasn't satisfied because hot rods go fast, but they don't handle very well. How do you take an engineering approach, more of a holistic approach, and make the car handle better? To be able to be very controllable, good brakes, good steering. If we could do that, maybe we would inspire other people. The Bernina Gran Turismo is one of the most prestigious classical car events in the world. And they invited us, and so that ended up being a phenomenal experience. It is a proof of concept that the car just doesn't go straight, but it can go up very serpentine, very curving course. The excitement is the same no matter whether it's the biggest form of racing or the smallest. Some people feel terrible unless they've won. All I need to do is to be in the game.
How you guys doing? My name's Todd Blue, and this is my 1972 Porsche 916 prototype. In 1972, Porsche, as I understand it, wanted to compete with the Ferrari Dino and some other cars, and so they built a 6-cylinder hardtop version of formerly what was the 914 Porsche. This car had everything and was unbelievably powerful, and as I understand it, was being readied for the Frankfurt Auto Show. They made 11 cars, and ultimately, as I understand it, the car was faster and more expensive than a 911, so the car was shelved and not decided to be made as a production car for the road. The 11 cars that were made, as I understand it, were sold to family members. This particular car is hoarfrost blue with a purple and blue paisley interior and was Michael Piach's car. I was so excited when I had the opportunity to purchase this car. My good friend George Conradsheim in Austria found the car for me, and the car was restored in northern Germany by Ingo Stemming. It took over a year, and I learned a lot of things about the process, including all of these cars were actually, when they came out of the factory, a creamy white color. And then afterwards, all the 11 cars were painted in special colors. And again, this car in a hoarfrost blue exterior. One of the coolest things about this car is this crazy interior, this paisley 70s, amazing, very almost disco interior. Literally reminds me of Studio 54 in a Porsche. So this car was a lot of fun. It's very fast. It's very similar to a car over here, which is the 914 6. And they made 23 of these. This is an M471 from 71. But ultimately, this car, which I'm submitting today to the Petersen, which I'm really excited about as a checkered flag member, to do the first virtual concours. And when they asked me to participate, I was honored. And with this particular car, I'm excited to submit it for the 2020 virtual concours for the Petersen Automobile Museum. Thank you for including me.
This is Charles Rollins coming to you from Orange County, California. This is our 1964 FIA Mercury Comet Caliente, built in tribute to Hot Rod Magazine editor and publisher Ray Brock, driver of the number 73 Comet in the 1964 East African Safari Rally. In 1963, Ford Motor Company's Total Performance advertising campaign gave the okay to order 10 specially prepared 1964 Comet two-door hardtops to pre-run and compete in the 12th East African Safari Rally. The Mercury team was the first ever American entrant in what was known as the world's toughest competitive automotive event. The previous year, only 7 of the 84 entrants finished the grueling 3,189-mile rally, which was run day and night over 4 days on dirt roads with only a single 8-hour break. Bill Stropp and Associates, located in Long Beach, California, under the direction of ex-Hot Rod Magazine tech editor Don Francisco, outfitted the Comets with front and rear auxiliary lighting, tow hooks, mud flaps, roll bar, skid plates, triple warbling air horns, rally computer, map light, custom center console with twin thermoses, and special rear bumper mounted steps with trunk mounted handles so the navigator could provide additional weight for improved rear traction in muddy conditions. Power comes from Ford's small block Hypo 289 V8 with 15-inch strengthened steel wheels and Firestone dirt track style tires. Wild animals, rain, mud, flooded river crossings, and stone-throwing locals couldn't stop the 1964 Mercury Comet.
This 1951 European car is seldom recognized by people on the street, and a surprising number of car people don't recognize it. Has an air-cooled 4-cylinder engine, boxer engine in the back, aerodynamically shaped, built by the Tatra Car Company, third oldest car company in the world, I understand, and the model name is Tatraplan or T600, and it has a couple of partners in crime.
So here's the 1952 Munz Jet out here in the Hamptons in Long Island. It looks happy. With the 160 horsepower Ford flathead. We did, of course, do the interior. And now we will fire up the engine. Okay, we're going to fire up the flathead here. Smooth. Very smooth. Again, all original. We did put the dual master cylinder in for safety. Bigger radiator, electric fan, and the overflow. But it runs great. We drive it regularly out here in the Hamptons. Gets a lot of attention. And of course we tell everybody it's the car Grace Kelly owned. Rev it up there, John.
Hi, this is Gene from Bucks County, proud to present our 1952 Bentley Graber of Switzerland drop head coupe, originally displayed at Geneva in 1952 in a fixed head coupe configuration where it went unsold. Finding a customer who wanted the automobile but in a drop head, 6 months later, Herman Graber accommodated the customer. The build sheet shows the steering wheel to be lowered and extended, rosewood interior for the wood, built-in liquor cabinet, for drinking and driving, I assume, plus town and country horns. The car has undergone a 5,000-hour restoration. It has won numerous Concours awards, been the recipient of 3 Best in Shows. It's a fun car to drive because it has an all-alloy body, so it steers extra easy because it is light and really hops out like a jackrabbit. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day.
Hi, I'm Elaine Bendel, and I would like to introduce you to this beautiful 1964 Lincoln Continental convertible. Just 3,300 convertibles were built by Lincoln that year. The most unusual aspect of this car is its rare external color, buckskin. Lincoln offered 20 colors in '64, but just 1 month after this car was built, in October '63, Lincoln canceled buckskin. As a result, not more than 40 buckskin convertibles were ever built new, and only a handful survive. In fact, this is the only one I am aware of that has a buckskin exterior, palomino interior, pleated leather seats with buttons, and a beautiful original carpet in as-delivered condition. The engine is the original 430 cubic inch V8 with 320 horsepower. After 5 decades, it still looks and runs great. This car was state-of-the-art back in '64 with its automated convertible top system running on a complex series of switches, motors, and relays. Mine works, but my car guy says this is the most complicated American car ever built. I believe him. But enough talk. It's time to take her for a spin.
Hello, my name is Mark Lopez. This is our 1966 Shelby GT350. Its VIN number SFM 6S289. It was delivered to the original owner, Competition Press and Auto Week magazine, on November 5th, 1965. In August 1967, my parents bought this car from the magazine for $2,600. It has many of its original components: the drivetrain, the Krager wheels, including the 5th one in the trunk, the original Coney shocks, rebuilt by Coney. They're stamped July '65. On the interior, the original seats, the original seat interior covers, including that hump that I sat on when I was 7 years old. My parents test drove this car in 1967. Has the original Ray Brown racing seat belts. It's signed by Carroll Shelby, Peter Brock, Bob Bondurant, and Chuck Cantwell. It has the original tack. And the unique items on this car include the in-dash Block Hunt Marine Band AM/FM radio, the under-dash Block Hunt Marine Band radio, and the electric antenna. All installed by Carroll Shelby for his buddy Russ Goebel prior to delivery. I have signed documentation from Carroll on this as well. It's one of 5 cars that did not go through a dealer or go to a Shelby associate in the 1966 year.
For today's startup, I'm going to be using these keys. These were my mom's keys, and this will be the first time using these keys since my mom used them to put this GT350 in her garage back in 1977. It stayed there for 28 years. Thanks, Mom.
Our GT350 has its original vehicle serial number ID tag, including the original rivets still holding in the tag, going back to no doubt October 1965. As mentioned earlier, it has its original drivetrain, original block heads, valve covers, oil pan, the original 715 Holly, the original Coneys, the original tanks for the radiator, stamped March 1965. So it is just as it was. My parents bought this car in August '67. If you'd like to see more about our family vehicle, visit our website at 66gt350.com and see more history and photos. Thank you for your time.
Everyone, this is my 19 37 Nissan Skyline Hakusuka C10. Watanabe wheels, 16 inches. Okay, now we come look at the interior. Brand new door panels. Original seats. Now we look at the engine bay. This car, the engine S20, 6-cylinder, 2000 cc.